Hello, friends. I'm Kush Khandelwal, and this is Ageless Athlete. A few years ago, I started asking questions that would not leave me alone. Why do some people keep pushing mentally, physically, spiritually long after others burn out or break down? What does it really mean to age well when you still crave movement, meaning, and mastery? This show is my search for answers. Each week, I talk to elite athletes, everyday adventurers, and pioneering researchers who are stretching the limits of what's possible across age, injury, illness, and self doubt. You will hear hard won lessons, untold stories, and science backed strategies for building a body and mindset that lasts. For those of us joining for the first time, welcome to the show. For the rest, thank you for joining us again. Time is our most valuable asset, and I deeply appreciate you giving me your time today.
This is Kush Khandelwal with the Ageless Athlete podcast. This is episode number 40, and yeah, maybe a small milestone. So today is a unique twist. I am stepping into the guest seat. I had the privilege of being interviewed by Heather Heynen on her excellent podcast, Weight Loss and Wellness for Real. Now, it's a bit different for me being on this side of the mic, but I was excited to dig deep into my personal journey and share some stories that I have never really talked about on my own podcast. I have always focused on the incredible journeys of athletes who push the boundaries of age, but this time I open up about my own experiences from navigating injuries to finding new meaning in movement and life. Heather is a great interviewer. We cover much from my early days in India to what drew me to surfing and climbing and how I have learned to adapt with age. I'll be honest, this conversation made me reflect on how important it is to listen to our bodies and evolve with the challenges we face. It is a vulnerable space to be in, but I'm grateful for Heather guiding the conversation with such warmth. I think you'll find this episode relatable, whether you are an athlete or someone just looking to stay active and well. I will admit, we recorded this a while back and it took me some time to decide to share it with you. So, without further ado, here's my chat with Heather.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for being here. I do have a special guest that I'm talking to today whose name is Kush Khandelwal, and he runs the show Ageless Athlete, the podcast Ageless Athlete. And he and I connected through some mutual friends. And I started listening to his podcast and really, really enjoy it. And I know all of you, as my listeners, would enjoy it as well. And so I wanted to have him on the show to talk about just his journey into movement and as he ages, what he is doing about trying to optimize some of the abilities to stay active as he ages, as well as some of the practical strategies he uses.
Kush, thank you for being here. Could you maybe start out just telling us a little bit more information about you, your journey here to the United States, maybe a little background on how you got into climbing and surfing?
Heather, thanks for having me on your podcast this morning, my time.
Yes.
And yeah, so this could be a long-winded answer, so feel free to cut me off.
Okay.
Yes, I live in the US now. I have been here since 99. I have been in San Francisco since 2006. So
okay, yeah.
As my mom likes to remind me, I've been in San Francisco now longer than I have lived in any city. Before the US, I was mostly growing up in India. Came to the US to go to grad school in the East Coast. And really, my drive to come to the US was inspired both, this is the land of opportunity, so to speak. But I also wanted to explore the beautiful world outside India and
I spoke English, and it was an easier place to go than, let's say, France.
Sure. Yeah. Right.
And I came here, and I had been exposed to the mountains as a child. I was lucky that my parents took me and my brother to the Himalayas most summers for backpacking trips or even sightseeing, and that instilled an early love. And took that to do some mountaineering in India as a teenager. Came back here to the US to learn how to rock climb and get more into the technical side of things. And yeah, I have been lucky to have climbed in the US and overseas in some beautiful places for the last 20 odd years.
Yeah.
And then surfing happened because once I moved to San Francisco, the driving to Yosemite and some of these other places was a long 10-hour, 8-hour commute round trip, while the ocean beckoned being only 15 minutes away.
Yeah.
And I love exploring new things. So a friend took me surfing for the first time. Not a natural sea creature. I grew up in a landlocked city, but I was amazed at the wonder and the beauty that was just besides me. And yeah, I've been in surfing and climbing, and I'm pretty average at both in most respects, but I love them immensely. They have completely transformed my life. They have taught me so many things and also opened many doors, including this podcast, Ageless Athlete, which taps into stories of surfers, climbers, runners, all these people who thrive in the beautiful outdoors.
Yeah, I love that. Do you find any similarities between climbing and surfing?
Well, right away, they both take place in the beautiful natural world.
Yes.
I would say that's key.
Yeah.
The second is, I think in some ways, I like to call them lifestyle sports.
Yeah.
Where they require, to some degree, being able to adapt one's lifestyle to either go climb in beautiful places far away or to adapt to the whims and mercies of the ocean. I would say that's second. And maybe one other thing could be that often one is not competing with others.
Yeah,
as
it's kind of a solo sport.
Yeah, as compared to many more mainstream sports, whether group sports or individual sports.
Yeah.
Here, I think the yardstick is just oneself. How I surf today, I only have myself to compare to, my last wave, my last session, the last swell. So I would say those could be some key highlights.
Yeah. I've done tiny bit of I've done a lot of climbing, tiny bit of surfing. And I've found there's all those things you said are so true. And then also there's some similarity in there is a very almost singular perspective in both of them that I find. So, I'm sure you've experienced this climbing and surfing because you are solo, but you have to be so in the moment with both of them, which maybe is lots of sports. But I do find with those two, it's like this very singular perspective that you get while you are engaging in both of those sports. You have to be very in the moment, I would say.
I certainly relish the flow state that I find.
Yeah.
One other thing worth highlighting could be where, both of these sports, but also some others like, let's say, mountain biking.
Yeah, I was thinking that one too.
Yeah, or it could be running, trail running, could be that. I think with team sports, one adapts to the people one is competing or playing with,
right?
Whether it's football or whatnot. But with here, one adapts to the natural landscape. So it could be, as you know, being a climber yourself, it could be the wall, the type of rock.
Right.
It could be the conditions of that day, the moisture, heat.
Yeah.
Same with the ocean.
So true.
I find that also like a really fascinating aspect of outdoor sports.
Yeah, no, that is so true. And interesting. I haven't really thought about that before, but that is so true. We end up adapting to nature through the sport itself. Yeah, through the activity itself. Yeah. You and I talked a few weeks ago for a little bit, and you spoke a little bit about sort of your, I don't want to put words in your mouth, so you can redirect this question, but a little bit of your journey into finding an identity, within a different country and culture, and kind of how sport or your activities played into that.
Certainly, yes, that is a good question, something that I think about now and then.
Mm-hmm.
I will try to articulate this to the best I can.
Okay.
It is close to my heart. Yes, I came to this country as a young, wide-eyed student, leaving my family behind. Many of my misconceptions about this country were misconceptions. I found America to be a beautiful country full of amazing people. I was still a little different, though. My roots were different. The kind of food I ate was different. I was fluent in the language spoken here, fortunately, having grown up kind of bilingual. But again, the idioms, the nuances, the holidays, all of them are different.
Yeah.
These outdoor sports allowed me to bond with other practitioners.
Yeah.
So the place I learned to climb with was this little town, which is centered around the Appalachian Mountains in West Virginia. So there's this climbing area called the New River Gorge. I first went there as part of a whitewater rafting trip.
Wow.
And when I used to live in North Carolina, and then discovered climbing, and this is back in 2004. So in some respect, this could be like an outlying place. It's a small little place historically where people would mine coal. That's the primary form of income. But then in the last couple of decades, it also became a center for outdoor recreation. So I started going there. I still looked different than most people, Everybody was white and from the South. But I was immediately accepted there, I think. And I was able to relate to these people because all of us were called to the mountains with the same passion, with the same drive. And that really helped me find a home and an identity, because I didn't have to pretend to be somebody different. I didn't have to pretend to enjoy certain things that I didn't. I could be completely myself, and I could exult in the outdoors and be silly and goofy with other people I met. So it has been a huge part of my acclimation in the US.
Yeah. That gives me goosebumps and a little teary-eyed. It's just kind of like, that's such a really meaningful and heartfelt experience. And I love that idea of activity and nature, the outdoors, bringing people together. And I think when those of us who participate in those things, obviously your story is an extreme coming from another country, but even within, someone who lives here becoming part of that outdoor activity or outdoor sport culture, you really are able to find a sense of belonging, a sense of who you are. And to your point, it's like nothing else about you really matters because you have that one thing in common and you all kind of experience that activity and nature in the same way. It's very uplifting. Yeah. So it's neat. That's neat.
100% true. Yes. It allows us, I think, like you said earlier, when one is fully present in the moment and does something, bringing one whole self, it makes us colorblind, language blind, culture blind.
Yeah, so true. That makes me think about climbing travels overseas and places where, someone, you don't speak the language and yet, you're with a group of climbers at a crag and somehow you end up being able to communicate in different ways, or you're cheering that person on who doesn't speak your language or whatever it is. Those are really special moments to experience in life. There really is a sense of belonging, deep belonging in those moments. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I'll shift gears a little bit here. Are you comfortable talking about some injuries that you've experienced and you're recovering from? And I only bring it up because, my listeners, your listeners tend to be a little older and in a good way. but, would maybe be interested in hearing some things about how do we keep our movement going, our activities going when we are injured? How do we deal with it mentally, emotionally?
Yeah, happy to share what I can.
Yeah. So where are you at right now? Like,
yeah,
because you had mentioned
certainly.
it last time, but I don't know details about, if you're recovering or what you're having to do. And
certainly, yes. So the backstory is, I used to think I was pretty fit, and I would, go out and push myself as much as I could. I would be the first person at the climbing wall. I would be the person who wanted to stay the longest. We would joke that if you don't have your headlamps on when you're hiking out, you haven't had a full day. So I thought I could push myself as much as I could. And somewhere in my early mid-30s, I started getting some niggling things. I think elbow stuff. I started getting some shoulder issues, some knee issues. Fast forward a few years, I had one injury, distinct one. One is I hurt my wrist with my surfboard. And then again, I was climbing in Yosemite trying this track, and I fell on my shoulder. So I had a couple of distinct things.
Yeah.
Those, at that point, I did physio. I did some basic things, rest, physio, etc., changed some modalities. I was able to continue doing those things, climbing, surfing. All of that came to a standstill about a year ago when I had an episode with my left shoulder. And it's funny enough, I was on a bouldering trip in the mountains in India, and I came back and my shoulder was really complaining. I took this massage, and this person giving me this massage, he thought he could cure me. So he was manipulating my shoulder in these painful ways. I was like, you know what? That's the price you pay for mobility. So I let him have it.
Right.
The next day, my shoulder was worse. Went and saw the doctor. And I was actually in India. I saw the doctor, saw a couple other people, put me through the grind of MRIs and X-rays and all of those. Turned out I had bad arthritis.
Oh,
so what had happened, and this is theory, it's hard to sometimes know exactly when things went off the script, but the injury that I suffered earlier with my labrum and my rotator cuff, they got torn.
Oh, yeah.
And because of this repetitive kind of stress I put my shoulder through with overhead sports, in my case, climbing and surfing, they did not help things. And perhaps maybe in hindsight, if I had gotten, let's say, more invasive work done, they could have arrested some things. But at this point,
hard to know.
It is just, it's kind of bad. Like the osteoarthritis is kind of bad. I also did something which in hindsight was a mistake. I got a PRP procedure done when I was in India. It's an expensive procedure. I think it's been happening for many years, but maybe some people think it's experimental. That was the worst.
Really?
It wrecked my shoulder. I don't know what it was, but
shoot.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I experienced pain. If on a scale of 1 to 10, if 10 means basically you're going to die, it was like an 8 or a 9.
Oh,
so
miserable.
I got the PRP for like a week. I couldn't move my shoulder. And I am still that was like 8 months ago. My shoulder still feels traumatized from that PRP procedure.
I bet.
So anyway, long story, but at this point, I've been doing intensive rehab for the 6 months, the last 6 months. My life these days is wake up, an hour of rehab, go to bed, an hour of rehab to try to get as much function back. The alternative would have been to do something as extreme as a shoulder replacement.
Right. That's major.
Because I want to be able to continue doing things I enjoy. So stopping climbing, stopping surfing, those are not options.
Yes,
and
I understand.
I'm told I'm too young to replace my shoulder.
Yeah.
So at this point, I just believe that the rehab and just mind over body, whatnot, will help me get back on track.
Are you still able to surf, to climb? Like, can you still do some of that?
I haven't tried surfing, but I have just started getting back into climbing.
Okay. Yeah.
I started going to the climbing gym about 2 months ago. trying to keep it, what they call zone 2 to
Yes.
some level. And
Yeah.
then this past weekend, I actually went outside after a long gap.
Wow.
It felt very wholesome. It felt affirming that to be able to use one's body in the way one is accustomed to, and yourself and many of your listeners would know, if one gets certain level of joy out of movement, and that is taken away, one can kind of feel a little bit lost. So I was really glad to have been able to go back outside. I felt really great. So
that's wonderful.
Hopefully I'll be able to get back to
back to what you were doing before. Did you find over these last about 8 months, I think you said, like mentally, emotionally, was that tough? Like, did you have ways of kind of getting through that? Because for any of us who really do find joy in our outdoor activities, when you're shut down with injury, that can be really, really hard mentally and emotionally.
Good question. It was crushing to not be able to have to stop doing these things.
Yeah.
I will say that I am 46 now. Had this happened maybe a decade ago, I would have taken it. It would have been worse. I think I have learned a few things over the years. I've had setbacks. Yeah. And I think it's made me stronger. So when this latest thing happened, I think I was more prepared.
Yeah.
In a funny way, it's also been a time of growth for me, because I was not able to rely on the usual things that give me fulfillment, gave me a reason to wake up and do things. I've had to dig deeper and come up with new ways to find that same contentment out of life. And I've been able to, try and do some new things. This podcast that I started in January is one of them. It's allowed me to both creative expression and also connect with the outdoor community.
Yeah.
The podcasts were actually born out of my need to find stories and inspiration and education on people who have been able to continue pushing themselves despite age, despite injuries, despite other maybe limiting beliefs. And I was like, I can't find answers on how do I cure myself. And I was like, I couldn't find podcasts or information on sources online. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to start my own podcast, and I'm going to start talking to all these uber seasoned athletes.
Yeah. You have some awesome interviews, that's for sure.
So that's really been this period of learning and growth.
Yeah, that's really neat and inspiring, because, I'm thinking about times I've been injured, and, you're sitting out, and you can go one of two ways, right? Like, you really can go down a very dark hole pretty easy. Well, I could have anyway, pretty easily, and maybe at times did. But then making a decision to go the other way, where you do figure out some growth and some learning, and maybe these new opportunities that wouldn't have come your way if the injury hadn't been there, and really figuring out, it's a little bit, metaphorically, it's a little bit what life's all about. There's always ups and downs, and figuring out how to use those low points to move further in a different direction. Yeah, that's good. Good job keeping your mental and emotional stuff in check.
Yeah.
So what about just practical things? What do you do? So you're 46. You have some injuries, but you continue, to want to and do press on with your climbing and your surfing. You're doing a lot of physical therapy right now. Do you have specific training that you do or that you think about doing in order to really optimize yourself in your sport?
Training as it relates to my rehab or other?
Or just, I'm thinking about with your climbing, to be able to, do it for as long as you can possibly do it. Like, do you have specific training that you do for that?
I've been thinking a lot about energy, not just in training, but in recovery, in focus, in how we age. So when I came across NutriSense, it hit home. It's a program that pairs a 24 by 7 glucose biosensor with a dedicated dietitian to help you understand how your body responds to food, stress, sleep, and movement, and then act on the data. I chose it because I wanted something real, not another hack or one size fits all plan, just honest insight into what's actually going on inside me and how to build habits that last. NutriSense has helped over 150,000 people take that step. And if you want to try it, you can get 33% off your first month with code AGELESS15 at nutrisense.io. Again, that's nutrisense.io, code AGELESS15. You can also find this information on the show notes for this episode.
Yeah, I can answer that in a more general way, and then we can narrow it down.
Sure.
Yeah, I've learned a lot of things about training over time. I tend to geek out a little bit. Climbing is a newer sport in some ways compared to many. There's not as much money in it.
Yeah.
So the science is a bit more primitive.
It's new.
But,
yeah.
I'm sure you as well, we follow certain, let's say, sports science savants, certain athletes. So I would say that some of the things that I have learned is, I would say number one is focusing on weaknesses.
Yeah.
So being intentional with the time one spends training. I know that my background is with sport climbing, which is this longer, let's say more endurance-based kind of climbing. So I already have a broad base of fitness. I can climb routes. I can hang on to overhanging big holes we call jugs, but I don't have a lot of power. So I need to focus on building power. So when I go train at the gym, I try to focus on those elements. Train for power, train for dynamic movement. I would say that's one. The second thing I would say is reducing the volume. I think there are certain myths about training that get debunked. One of them being that one needs to keep up a certain amount of volume. One might,
I agree.
But that all depends on one's climbing or sport history. Because I have that base already built, I can get back to a certain level pretty quickly. So I reduce the volume now. I don't climb as much. Also, life's demands also keep me away. I don't have as much time as I used to be able to climb all the time. So I think it works well. Where the time I spend now training, it is focused towards really pointing out what my most glaring needs are. And I would say the third thing could be being more project specific. So instead of, other sports have seasons where, let's say, I don't know, we have the Olympics this year, right? So I'm sure that there are athletes around the world preparing for that sort of that peak performance period. And I think the same should apply to some of our lifestyle sports. If you have a big climbing trip coming up, if you want to go climb either a 513 something or climb El Cap, then one should plan based with that in mind. Not only does it help one periodize one's physical training, I think it also helps one plan and get ready mentally. I think that sight one has for that goal, as you know, being an athlete yourself, I think it helps us optimize our time and push through. I would say one other thing I should really add is the time one does spend training, even if the timing is reduced, one needs to really try hard.
Yeah, I agree.
And I have to learn that lesson over and over. It's not like, you finish a training session, you're like, I feel tired, I feel sore, I should just go and make myself a meal. I mean, really, did you try as hard as you could have? So I think that's also a lesson.
I think that, all of those are great. That one, the last one you talked about, that has been where I have had to do the most work as well, to where like I have to even stay away. Like I have to move my phone so I'm not checking my phone because, I would do things like you're doing your little training stuff and then, there's the phone. So I'm checking my phone and all of a sudden 6 minutes goes, it's just, so I've had to do little tricks to make myself focus and try hard. And actually in the moment of training, really be thinking about, okay, what muscles am I activating here? What is my goal? Like literally have to think about it in the moment. Anyway, that's practice. That takes practice. So yeah.
Yeah.
But it's helpful.
Yeah. It's both recruiting your body for sure, but then also somewhat being really observant.
Yeah. Right.
And intentional with how one is using one's fingers, one's feet, one's body, one's center of gravity.
Yeah, all those things. What about do you use a specific diet to help with, like, do you eat a certain way to help with training or performance or recovery?
The diet, and I would say that I have some core principles that I live with, but I could fine tune it further. I would say, core things. I gave up eating meat about 7 years ago.
Okay, yeah.
So I grew up mostly vegetarian. And then once I came to the US for grad school, my parents joke that I started eating meat with a vengeance. So I ate a lot of meat. But then, I don't know, maybe wiser sense of what not prevailed. And I stopped eating meat mostly for environmental and animal rights reasons.
Right.
But then incidentally, I think there are benefits to not eating meat. So today I would say 90% veganish.
Okay.
With a little bit of seafood thrown in, maybe a couple times a month. And as far as, mostly plant-based.
Gotcha.
And I end up preparing a lot of my own meals. Maybe I'm a little bit picky about what I eat. I prepare a lot of my meals. I tend to follow some basic principles with managing my daily food intake. I try to not eat a heavy meal late at night.
Yeah.
I try to maintain like a certain ratio between, let's say the building blocks between proteins, carbs, and fats. And I feel that as long as I eat the right foods, those ratios automatically
they fall into place.
They follow they follow the science.
Yeah, that's good. And do you feel like, has that changed as you've aged? Like, do you notice, I don't know, that fueling maybe for a climbing session or a surfing session, has that changed at all getting older?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I'm definitely very sensitive now to what I eat.
Yeah, me too.
Especially some reason what I eat at night. If for no other reason that I really hate feeling gross in the morning after like some
like the food hangover
after some like obscene dinner, so
right.
So I tried to, so that has certainly changed. I think when I was younger, eat anything, anytime. And I know that I'm active.
You can get away with it.
Yeah, I will not have an issue. I do think, though, that being very active in my 20s has helped me maybe develop, in some respects, a higher metabolism as compared to some of my other friends who were not as active when they were younger.
Right.
So I don't have an issue with being able to eat slightly larger portions and being able to digest them fairly efficiently.
Yeah.
I'm just a little bit careful about the times when I do eat.
Got it.
And also a little bit careful about, just not eating a lot of like fried food.
Right.
Things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like the icky oils and things like that. I do think it's interesting. I've had the same experience, like, and I think most people have. It's sort of like when you're younger, you can kind of get away with so much with food, and as we age, and like the audience who is listening, I mean, I know they'll all understand this too. It does just shift and change. It's like what worked back then in our 20s, it really does change over time, and just that importance of paying attention and changing things up in order to feel a lot more optimal so that you can live this very vibrant, healthy life, whether you're, you have a sport that you love or not, just being able to have that daily energy and all those things. So yeah. And I agree that if I eat a big meal late into the evening and go to bed, I mean, that is probably the worst. It's like a hangover the next day. So yeah, I don't know. Not fun.
mean, I have certainly made some maybe tall claims, but I am not, I'm not averse to eating that, big bowl of ice cream or a big thing of popcorn late at night. I slip.
It happens.
I slip all the time.
Yeah, totally. We all do. Mine are usually cookies. So yeah, for sure. It's just, I think it's so about, I mean, I don't like using the word moderation because that gets thrown around all the time, but it's really about being able to have more. I mean, food is there to be enjoyed as well, and having those moments where you enjoy it. I think if you're mindful of it and really enjoying it, then that's great. You just, as I feel personally, as I get older, I just can't do it as often as I would kind of like to do it. So I just have to be mindful and monitor that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I would also like to add again, I have never really practiced any intense diets. Never. I've been lucky, I think. But I think eating well and eating healthy is a long game. And I think the work, let's say, quote unquote, work I put in when I was younger in being active, whatnot, I think that's what allows me to continue being somewhat carefree, with what I eat, because I think my body has maybe settled into like some sweet spot.
Totally.
As long
That's
as I'm
awesome.
able to, just, press on the throttle just a little bit, just to keep moving and whatnot, I think it can keep cruising.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know for how long, but for now, I think I've been able to enjoy just eating well and being able to thrive.
Yeah, I think too, if you are eating overall pretty nutrient dense foods, so you're fueling your body with lots of nutrients, I think then you can, what do you want to say, like get away with maybe some other things that aren't so nutrient dense. I think if your body has the nutrients, it's working well, it's humming along, so it can handle other things. So these are all theories. I don't know.
One other thing I could maybe add is that I think a lot of people, myself included, can be so, let's say, careful, to the point of extreme when we are cooking at home, right? So we're like, I will only add so much oil to my food, or only eat, so much pasta or whatnot. But I think the real culprit, is eating out. Because when you eat out, the chefs at most places are not optimizing food for health benefits. I think they're optimizing them for taste. So you keep coming back.
Yeah.
So I would rather cheat at home and eat all the good, add all the good fats and all of those things, so that I am more inclined to eat at home.
Yeah.
Because it tastes so good, rather than like think myself that, oh yes, I'm eating at home and this is like some sort of penance.
Right.
And then when I go out, I'm consuming like buckets of I don't know.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
No, that's a great point. And I think you're right. I know when I'm working with people, if I can get that piece of their lifestyle to shift a little bit, there's huge results, whether they're looking to drop some weight or just feel better, more energy. I work with a lot of people who just want more energy, and if we can help them shift their lifestyle to where they are eating more at home, and like you said, wonderful, good, filling foods, that can change a lot. So yeah.
One final thing I might add is I tend to buy whatever I want at the grocery store.
Yeah.
Somehow eating, I'm sure that's a whole other conversation, but buying groceries in this country as relative to other countries and as relative to eating out in the US also is so much cheaper. So I think when I go to a grocery store, I try to buy high quality ingredients, high quality fruits and vegetables, high quality pantry items. Because again, if I buy good stuff, it's fun to cook with them. It's fun to eat them. And then when you go out, you might pay more money, but and they're certainly not using the highest quality ingredients.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point too. What about, Do you think about as you age into the future, do you have any specific sort of thoughts on, like, do you have kind of a structure for how you think about aging well into the future?
Friends, it means a lot that you're here. I pour a ton of heart into the show. The research, the interviews, the editing, it's all me, trying to share stories that matter. If Ageless Athlete has ever made you feel seen, inspired you, or just kept you company on a long drive, or better, over a run or a bike ride, I would be so grateful if you considered supporting it. Even a small amount helps keep it going, helps keep bringing the show to you for free. You can chip in at buymeacoffee.com/agelessathlete. Again, buymeacoffee.com/agelessathlete. You can find the link on the show notes as well. Thank you for listening and for being part of this.
Interesting question. Yeah, I think the term structure is important. I think I haven't been a very structured person for most of my life. I think a lot of people would describe me as happy-go-lucky.
Yeah.
But I think some of these reckoning moments I've had with injuries the last couple of years have forced me to think about this. Also, I started this podcast.
I know. I was thinking about
and
that. Yeah.
I'm so inspired by all these people that are coming on to share some of their wisdom.
Yeah.
So structure-wise, I think it is broadly to shift a few things. So one is goal setting. I don't set long-term goals. So I think I have started doing that. I have also shifted or starting to shift my overall lifestyle into areas where I feel I will bring out my gifts. And this goes beyond athletics. It goes back to, what do I do for a living? How do I spend my day? And the people I surround myself with. Somehow in the last few years, one question which I think a lot about, which maybe many listeners of your show and my show as well do, what is the message I'm leaving behind?
Yeah. Legacy.
And so I use some of that to guide what I do. I want to be able to keep doing things I love. I think for me, that is a non-negotiable.
Yeah.
I also think a lot about giving back. And I feel I've been lucky that I've learned so much from many people. I continue to do that. And how is it that I can give back, reciprocate, teachers, help reduce, let's say, differences in access to the outdoors for people coming from different backgrounds? How do I encourage people to continue living to their fullest as they get older? I think those are some important things I think about. And I think if I do those well, to benefit others, I think the benefits I get back to myself are like manifold.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, I love that. I think it sounds like you are in a very accepting and peaceful place with aging, and that you also understand that idea of maybe a little deeper meaning behind life in regards to leaving legacy and aging. I think when you're in that space, it's such a inspiring and just really beautiful place to be in life. I think it's easier then to also be in the present moment more often and just enjoy life on a daily basis. Those are all great things. Is there anything else that you want to add that maybe I didn't ask about, or anything else you want to tell us about the podcast?
One other thing I would like to add to the last point is what you just said relates to acceptance.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to accept, but not be resigned.
Love that.
And I think one needs to continue fighting and striving for one's best output.
Yeah.
So the podcast is super exciting. I am so inspired by the guests. And so the genesis of the podcast, like I said, is to uncover these stories of elite level outdoor athletes all over the world. There are many incredible people around us who are doing extraordinary things.
They really
are. I thought a light needs to be shown on them. And they have so much to teach us, to inspire us. There are also little secrets that people have, the way people maintain their bodies, the way people change their diets. I have spoken with, for example, I spoke with, I think the oldest person on my podcast, Lee Sheftel, who at 77 climbs 512. So he climbed at the 90th percentile. And
it's amazing.
He has relentlessly experimented with his diet and his training. And there's so much for us to learn. The focus of media, the focus of education always seems to be on the youth. People who are still early, still peaking.
Right.
Most of us, the world is aging. We are all getting older. But if the message we get is getting old is stopping things we love because our body and our mind has, let's say, receded, I think that is absolutely untrue. We stop doing things because we are told we cannot do those things. So that is the core premise of the podcast. And yes, we have people from, I've guessed, from their late 30s to the 70s. And one of the surprising things that I'm learning, many things coming out, is many of them did not peak until their 50s. I spoke with, for example, I spoke with Megan Canfield, who is an ultra runner. She runs 100-mile plus marathons. She continues to excel.
It's amazing,
in her age category, but in the overall pool of runners, she did not hit her fastest times until her 50s.
Yeah, I love that.
The friends we have in common, Chuck and Maggie Odette, they climb in the 99th percentile. And they are in their upper 60s. And
he is. She's in her mid 50s.
Totally.
Mid 50s.
So Chuck is upper 60s. Maggie is low 50s. One other interesting thing that came to light is many of them did not even start their sports until their 40s.
Right.
So, for example, I spoke to this guy who runs these marathons doing run art. He didn't start running until his mid 40s.
It's amazing.
So the other lesson I'm getting here is it's never too late to start.
It's never too late
if you find something amazing, if it really calls out to you, go out and start doing it.
Yeah, agree.
The last thing I'm learning, which is true for me, perhaps true for you also, is when we undertake activities where the process of learning is joyful, one will eventually succeed. And in my life, I know it's been with climbing, with surfing. I do a little bit of dancing on the side. For none of them, I was a natural. I sucked for a long time, but I had so much fun doing those things, taking classes, getting out and, getting crunched by the waves. And but trying hard only because it was fun. I don't know. My message to everybody is, hey, find something fun, because if it's fun, chase the fun, you're likely to stick with it and you will eventually get good at it.
Yeah, that's such a great message. And it's so true. It's so true. Yeah. So I just want to send all my listeners over to your podcast, which is called The Ageless Athlete. I listen, I'm a subscriber, and I recommend all my listeners do the same because it's incredibly inspiring. It's all the things you just said. In every episode I've listened to, I've been inspired. I've learned practical things as well, like you talked about with training or food or things like that. But overall, it gives such a sense of it is this inspiring push to go do the thing. I mean, every episode has been that. And so Yeah, I just really recommend to everyone listening out there to go give it a listen. And Kush, thank you so much for being here and just sharing your inspiring life journey with us, as well as some of the practical stuff you told us about. And I do look forward to talking to you again soon.
It's been wonderful coming on your show, Heather, and thank you so much. Yeah, thank you to your listeners. Yeah, go check out Ageless Athlete, any of your podcast apps.
Yes, and also, where can people find you and follow you?
Sure. So my Instagram handle is Ageless Athlete Podcast.
Perfect.
I'm guessing your show notes will have that link.
Yes, I will link all that stuff. Yes.
And I also started a YouTube channel recently, so you'll have to search for Ageless Athlete Podcast, the whole thing.
Okay.
I would say those would be, anytime, any questions, DM me. I'm available. Love to connect with other great listeners you have, and happy to answer any questions.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, thanks again, Kush. We will talk soon.
Thank you.
That's it, folks. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Ageless Athlete Podcast. I hope you enjoyed this show just as much as I enjoyed creating and producing it. Whether you are an athlete looking to push your limits or someone striving to maintain a healthy, active lifestyle as you age, there is always something new to learn. From Ageless Athlete, we bring you a fresh episode each and every week. If you liked what you heard, we would love it if you would take a moment to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an update. And if you really liked what you heard, please leave us a review, crush those 5 stars on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever else you listen to your podcasts. It helps us reach more people who are passionate about staying strong and resilient, no matter their age. Don't forget to visit our website and leave your email so I can send you occasional insights, stories, and tips to keep you inspired and motivated on your journey. You can also follow us on Instagram at Ageless Athlete Podcast and on YouTube at Ageless Athlete Podcast as well for even more great content. All of these links are available on the show notes for this episode. This show is entirely produced by me, Kush Khandelwal, based out of California with the help of my trusted adventure pup Roger. Until next time, keep challenging yourself. Keep pushing those limits. Stay mentally and physically fit. Continue doing what you love to do. And my friends, stay ageless.
Friends, this is not an ad. This is just a quick message to those amongst us who are listening to Ageless Athlete podcast for the first time. I would love it if you would hit subscribe and follow on your favorite podcast app, whether it's Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Stitcher or Overcast or what have you. We bring you stories and routines and other inspiration from elites in the world of the best outdoor sports. In each episode, you will find how these athletes stay connected to the outdoors, maintain peak performance, and continue to thrive as they age. I encourage you to look through prior episodes and listen to a couple and see if they resonate. And then, come back next week. We release an episode each week. And I am really inspired to bring you some of the best stories from the world of the outdoors. Okay, back to the show.